A couple of you have kind of alluded to this, but I'm wondering what you all are hearing about how your book is being used. In other words, have you heard anything about it being used for like professional development, where groups of people are using it, or are you hearing mostly from individual people who are like, wow, this is amazing, or other things? I know some of your books have been adopted in, like well, Noreen mentioned, like in court and for at universities for course adoptions. But any other or interesting ways you've heard about it, your books being used, or portions of your books?
I was surprised, and I don't know why, but I was surprised to hear that a lot of school districts had adopted my book, particularly around my chapters about identifying equity-minded teachers. And I know it's because these are the chapters where I really lean into my psych background. And people are responding to the distinction I make between teaching quality and teacher quality, right? Because most of our recruitment and hiring processes focus on the former, what teachers do. But I'm encouraging principals and district leaders to focus on teachers' belief systems, because we know that it's the beliefs that guide their behaviors. Teachers know what to say in an interview to describe their instructional approach, right? They know all the buzzwords they're supposed to use, but it's much more difficult to fake your core values and your worldview and your belief systems, particularly because those vary in different social settings, depending upon how your identity markers intersect with those of your students, their families, your colleagues, right? And so I spent a lot of time talking about what we should be assessing, and that teacher interviews must therefore tap into cognitive and affective teaching motivators. And I give lists of things that people can look for in those processes. So that part, I think, is really resonating with folks who do the hiring.
As I mentioned, our book's been used in teacher prep programs, and not just elementary, which is pretty awesome. Social Studies for a Better World, sorry, let me be specific. So last count, over 50 teacher preparation programs in the US and Canada were using it as the main course, like text in the course, which is incredible and kind of surreal. So we're really excited about that. The thing that I find confusing, and Manya, I guess this is normal if people are just using one or two of your chapters. Not everyone's using the whole book. So I'm like, well, we wrote it in order. We want, like, things build. So I'm always curious as to why people would just pick a few chapters and not the whole thing. That's the thing I would love to know more about. And then with Teaching Asian America, the new book with Soyanan and Esther Kim, we're actually about to start a book tour. We've been sponsored by an organization called the Asian American Foundation that's working on supporting the various states that have been passing mandates for the teaching of Asian American histories across the US. The numbers keep growing. Wisconsin just passed a mandate on Wednesday. So we have connections in these places, and there's a lot of enthusiasm, particularly among Asian American teachers and elementary school leaders around getting PD so that we can start teaching these things to young children as soon as possible, rather than waiting for the mandates to be official and in the law. Like, people are already looking for professional development. So the fact that that's happening is a dream come true, and we're just really excited that it isn't just like a one-off, we're going to come do a PD and then that's all you get, but they can actually refer to the book, and we're building out the website, because I think one thing I've learned from Social Studies for a Better World, and the rest of the folks, please chime in, is the website for the book has been really useful for people. And so I'm just trying to figure out, like, what are ways that we can leverage what's in the book and then add additional resources to the website so that the conversation isn't over. I feel like the days of bulletin boards are over, but I kind of wish that we had more spaces like that so that people who are interested in the topics that they're reading about in our books could connect more online in some virtual spaces to build communities around, like, their shared interests in developing these ideas that we've all written about and then actually executing them in classrooms.
Really quickly, off the top of your head, can you name some of the places where the book tour is going, in case you might end up, so people who are there might look for it?
Yeah, so we're going to be in Philadelphia in April for the American Educational Research Association conference. So we're doing some work with Philadelphia School District. And then we're going to be in Seattle at the end of April. And so we're doing some work at the University of Washington Bothell with our dear friends Wayne Al and Sarah Shear. We're going to work with some pre-service teachers there. And then we're in the process of figuring stuff out with folks in Atlanta in August, and Wisconsin and Illinois in September and October. So we're still working things out. The dates will be on our website, teachingasianamerica.com, in the coming months. So we're super excited. Reach out if folks are interested.
Thank you.
I've also heard about my book being used in a lot of teacher prep programs and district book studies. A really cool experience around the teacher ed program was that one College of Education kind of redesigned their whole course progression around some of the themes in my book so that it wasn't just in one class, it was really threaded through, which was pretty amazing. And then also, I'm curious if other people have had this experience, but some of the places my book has gone besides K-12 schools has been cool. There's been a medical school and a couple of schools of nursing that have been really interested. I've, seen it just kind of been taken up in some of these other places where people are teaching, but maybe it's not a K-12. My book has been cited in things about drama, community theater and music education. And so that's been really neat as well.
Anyone else?
We've had some school districts who've been doing a slow read, so doing a chapter a month, and then sometimes Elizabeth and I zoom in for a quick check-in around that chapter, questions that came up. And I know a lot of administrative teams are using it to sort of identify areas for strategic implementing, where to put their efforts and funding. But we also have a chapter for parents. So it showed up a lot in parent-teacher associations. Some school boards have been reading it, particularly ones that are entirely white, of which there are far too many. Same with administrative teams. And so I think particularly in areas where they recognize there's not representation, how do we at least take a step forward to look at ourselves so that we maybe could become more attractive to candidates of color to join an administrative team or a school board or any school institution.